I didn't think before I spoke. I said things like, "Why are you mad?" while the other person is literally mad. Or, I know you've heard this one, "I'm just being honest," which, let's be real, is code for I know what I'm going to say is going to hurt, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's why I want to share something simple but powerful that changed the way I communicate and honestly, how I show up in every relationship. It's called Think, T.H.I.N.K. And no, it's not just another motivational acronym. It's a filter, a habit, a mindset, if you will. And once you get it, you start thinking differently before you speak. Without it, it's just potential drama, regret, damaged relationships. People may forgive you, but they won't forget what you said or how you made them feel. I learned this from my boss, and this is something that will always stick with me because it's helped me in everyday life, from texting to tough conversations at work, conversations in my marriage, you name it. So whether you're a parent, a manager, a student, or just someone trying to be more mindful, this is something you'll want to keep in your back pocket. Now, what is Think? T-H-I-N-K. Think is a tool for thoughtful communication. If you want to open your mouth to say something, before you speak, ask yourself, is what you want to say true, helpful, inspiring, necessary, and kind? I remember learning about this and was like, wow, it sounds so simple, but I know from my own experience, I've mostly operated in the opposite direction. And honestly, how I see most people operating too, and that's reacting first, venting, judging, or just filling silence with noise. But Think, it helps you pause for a moment and allows you to do a number of things, which include taking a second to choose your words with intention, actually asking yourself, what am I really trying to convey here? And will the other person receive it well? And if not, how can I communicate in a way for them to hear it without making them defensive, upset, or minimizing that as much as possible? Because sometimes some conversations are just innately tough and they need to be had, and you just have to approach it delicately. There's a deeper layer, though, most people miss. Think doesn't just help you choose better words, it also helps you realize when silence is more powerful than speaking. And that took me longer to learn. You might realize that it's actually better to not say anything at all. Not because you're gonna bottle it up, but it could just not be worth it. It could be because the words were coming from our own traumas and personal agendas, so from insecurities, anxiety, frustration, fear, and not from any clarity, not from trying to understand what the other person just like what they might want to hear or need to hear in order for them to receive it. And when that's the case, silence is strength, because that pause, that moment where you choose not to speak, is the exact moment where any potential unnecessary drama dies, the miscommunication fades, and your emotions get to settle instead of like spilling all over the place. We're not always responsible for how others feel, but we are responsible for what we bring into the room. And going through this process helps us clear out what's reactionary, so what's left is what's real. So let's break it down. Starting with T. Is it true? Is what I'm about to say actually true? Not a rumor, not something I assumed. Assumptions are dangerous. Just because it feels true doesn't make it fact. So we need to have a concrete and objective source that can validate the truth. Otherwise, all we can really do is seek the truth. So you want to ask the question, hey, here's what I heard. Here's the information I got. Did this happen? Is it accurate? Just to make sure that you're not jumping the gun. Secondly, will what I'm about to say be helpful in that situation? Even if something is true, is it going to help the situation or just stir the pot? Some people like to engage in drama, whether they're aware of it or not. Sometimes we as humans just want to bond over the problems or the juicy tea that's happening, the all-around negative thing going on. Side tangent here. Before moving on to the I, but it's true. Charlemagne the God always says something that he says it all the time, and I resonate with it, which is nobody cares about the truth when the lie is more entertaining. But why? Why are we that way? Why are we so drawn to negativity, gossiping, and wanting the lie to be true more than the actual truth because of how entertaining it is? I've really thought about it, and I do think maybe it's because of a few things. I think the first is Honestly, our brains are just wired that way. Negativity grabs our attention because biologically speaking, it has to. Think of when you're walking and you hear a rustle in the grass or you get a bad vibe from someone. Our brain literally goes, wait a second, I gotta pay attention to this because it might be helpful. Noticing a sign of danger can be life-saving. So I think that's probably why. Another thing I thought about is when we look to gossip about whatever it is, we're seeking connection with others or seeking for someone to help validate our feelings and thoughts even when it's not based on anything. When people gossip, they bond. And what most people don't understand is that gossiping is really a cheap form of intimacy. It's just saying you and I are on the same side and they're not. It makes us feel included, important, in control, especially when we feel like things are out of control in our lives. And let's be real, sometimes the truth is boring. Jonathan was having a conversation with X person earlier about a disagreement, but they figured it out. That doesn't hit like Jonathan snapped at his coworker earlier. He might get fired. Like that, like we crave the story and drama, even if it's not true. Even like the first statement is probably it was true, the second is not. So, oh my goodness, online or even at work, where things are typically mundane and people look to for ways to entertain themselves. But again, it's a weak connection that we have with someone because it's disingenuous in nature. It's not a sincere form of bonding because think of the one who gossips the most in your life and think about the people in their lives that they say they love and yet they're gossiping about them behind their back to you. It's an unnecessary cycle and automatic pattern which we have the ability to stop. We just have to be more self-aware and not succumb to that dopamine hit. We can always talk and try to find the solution, but if you're not trying to find a solution, well then you're just gossiping, and I don't think that's helpful. So tangent done. Thirdly, is it inspiring? Will this lift someone up? Will it motivate or encourage them, or will it just bring them down? And you just have to decide which end of that stick you want to be on. It's that simple. Fourth, is it necessary? Do I need to say this right now? If so, why? What's the positive result I'm looking for if I say this? Do I need to say this at all? Again, if so, why? If I stay quiet, will we get closer to achieving that positive result? Things to think about. And last but not least, is it kind? Is this coming from a good place, a place of kindness? Ask yourself, do you want to be right or do you want to be at peace and in alignment? Or are you just trying to win, prove a point, or criticize? Can we deliver the message in a way that doesn't attack? Can I approach it with vulnerability? Can I preface it by saying something that brings the anxiety down if I mention I want to say something to them? There's this one person I manage, and every time I speak to her or ask to speak to her, first question is, am I in trouble? And that might come from some anxiety she carries. It could also just be a joke to help ease the seriousness of needing to quote unquote talk to someone. So something I can do each time to start the conversation is go, hey, I know every time I ask to speak with you, you tend to ask if you're in trouble. So you're not in trouble, but is it okay I ask you a question or talk to you about something like privately? Like that's an example of an attempt to knock down any defensive walls with empathy. Now, it's okay if not everything you say checks all 5 boxes. It's just the more you do, the better it'll be. Now, I do think there are non-negotiables. I think the T, is it true, and the K, is it kind, are absolutely necessary. Maybe the N. Because truth is foundational. If what you're saying isn't true, whether you know it or not, then everything else crumbles. I don't think any amount of saying something helpful or inspiring can ameliorate that. And with being kind, you can say something true or necessary, but if you're not going to consider how to say it with respect and care, then it could just do more harm than good. Because whatever the truth is, it goes out the window because the person is now immediately on the defense and they feel like you're now attacking them. So yeah, now the other 3, I know I said necessary, but the other 3, they act like checks and balances. I still think you need at least 1 or 2 of those in addition to the T and K, because something can be true and kind, but it may not immediately be helpful. And that can be okay. For example, I could give someone a compliment and say, wow, you communicate really well, and I admire that about you. Saying that doesn't really help in a tangible way, but it does build rapport and connection. and it makes the person feel good. Same with inspiring. Not every conversation is going to inspire. We can absolutely try to include it or ask ourselves how we can make it inspiring, and still it may fall short, but we can try to. And with necessary, well, sometimes the words are critical and needed, and other times a simple, hey, I'm really proud of you, could be deeply meaningful. And sometimes we need that. Sometimes we need to be seen in that way. Now, if someone always focuses on the T and the K and avoids the necessary conversations, then at that point, it can stunt growth. And we might avoid giving tough but true feedback or information because it doesn't feel right in the moment, or we don't want to hurt feelings, even though it could be something we believe is absolutely necessary. That's where helpful and necessary matter, because not everything that feels nice is what someone needs. So I don't think you need all five. Truth and kindness, always. The rest, use your judgment. Life's messy, people are messy, but if your words are kind, or if your words are honest and come from a kind place, you're 90% of the way there. So yeah, I didn't always think, but I've learned. Now, before I say something like, I'm just being honest, I run it through this process and ask, or am I just being a jerk with a thesaurus? So, next time you're about to speak, send a message or email, or even just want to vent out loud, pause and ask yourself, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And go from there. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments which part of think you struggle with the most, or which one you might focus on this week. For me, I think it'll be the non-tangible helpful piece. I don't think I do that enough. So yeah, that'll be for me. If you found this helpful, give it a like. If you feel compelled, please subscribe. Let me know in the comments what tools that help you in communication, and share this with someone if you think they need it. All right, I gotta head to work, so I'm out.